Okay, so this is a topic because of all the shootings and massacres and
gun control. Yes,
tragedies going on all around. And it's a pretty, it even came up in the, State of the Union, gun enforcement. So there was 90 sheriffs said that they're not going to help enforce gun laws.
Why did they say that? They're supposed to enforce the law.
Well, there's actually one sheriff who said, look, we can't even get there for 40 minutes. You need to have a gun if you're going to protect yourself. I mean, we can come there and take a report, but it's all over by the time we get there.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you saying that it's better to have citizens have guns to protect themselves because the police can't get to the scene of the crime fast enough to protect the citizen?
Yeah, there was a sheriff who actually came out and made that claim. But there was 90 sheriffs that said, we're not going to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. We don't mind if law-abiding citizens have guns, and we're not going to take them away. So the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, okay, they depend on local enforcement to
bolster their control,
to refurb things. And
of course.
And these folks say, well, we're not going to refurb. Now, is that a lot of people, 90 sheriffs out of all the sheriffs? Probably not. But they still say that they don't, mostly rural sheriffs. But the issue is, there's a huge divide in the country. Some people think that nobody should have guns except the government, large amount of people, and a lot of people thinking like, everyone should be able to have a gun as long as they're not a felon. As long as they're a law-abiding citizen, they ought to be able to have a gun if they want one.
Well, wait a minute. I want to throw something in here, Mark. The Second Amendment says we can have guns. Now, it doesn't say necessarily we're going to have Uzis and MAC-10s and silenced machine guns. That's not what it says. But the idea that we're going to be restricting guns, the Supreme Court's actually ruled on this now twice, and they're about to rule on it again in New York and Chicago, saying that citizens have a right to bear an arm. And New York and Chicago, of course, tried to take all guns away from legal people that bought them legally, right? Well, so the Supreme Court's already started to rule on this. So now how is this going to fly in the face of the Supreme Court rulings that we've had over the last 2 years?
Well, Heller versus District of Columbia, okay, that was the Second Amendment. They said, right to bear arms, will not be infringed. And so it's not saying that even on the Constitution you're granted that right. I mean, that's considered a God-given right. You have a right to.
Isn't it to protect us against the tyranny of the government?
Well, that's the framers felt that a well-armed citizenry was a free citizenry. That's what they felt, and so they said the Second Amendment, you can't take away someone's arms. Now, when you start talking about, okay, it's like for instance, Senator Feinstein.
That would be Dianne Feinstein from California.
Wants to ban 158 types of weapons, clips that hold more than 10 rounds. The counter argument to that would be, okay, if you're going to make a constitutional law, if you're going to go and talk about something.
Abridge the Constitution.
Okay, well, it's got to be a legitimate government interest, right?
Right.
It's got to be narrowly tailored.
Narrowly tailored, yes.
Okay, so the question is, so if you're using, your rifle for protection, and a criminal got 20 rounds, and you've got 3 rounds, not really much of a fair fight. So you would say, I mean, to a certain point, what the argument you were saying, well, can you have a Uzi, can you have this? I think, people would say, well, the citizen ought to be able to have the standard issue of whatever's out there. If they're going to protect themselves, it's not fair that they have like a, they have to load it with a, thing in there.
Musket loader.
Musket loader.
Let's pour in the powder, the black powder in the ball and the. No.
Boy, the other guy's got a.
Well, I know Dianne Feinstein would probably prefer that because then we only get one shot. But no, there's the bigger issue here. We have a mental health problem in this country, and that problem goes back to the time when they stopped funding hospitals that dealt with mental health issues. Now they feel it's more important just to prescribe Ritalin and all the various drugs to control our youth. Well, unfortunately, our youth is not being controlled by these drugs. They're being warped by these drugs. So when it's about a gun control, wait a minute. It's not the gun that's shooting. It's somebody with the gun in their hand that's shooting. So, like we look at the one, was it the Sunnybrook, the latest one in Connecticut. That child was abnormal for the last 10 years of his life prior to that shooting. His mother, who kept arms in the house to try to entertain him at some level, made a mistake. He was not diagnosed. He should have probably been incarcerated in a mental facility because his lack of reality. And if you look at these shootings, Columbine, these kids were on Ritalin, Prozac. They were out because of mental health problems, overtreated by prescription narcotics trying to control their problems. So when we look across this, it's not the gun that's doing the shooting. It's the person with a bad attitude and the inability to know right from wrong that's pulling the trigger.
Well, okay.
And how does Dianne Feinstein address that? Is there a health issue in there?
I would say the counter argument to that would be, okay, but if the guy's only got, you know, a muzzle loader, he can only shoot one person. If he's got a 30 clip, he can shoot 30 clip if he's crazy. So that'd be the counter argument to that. So there is counter arguments. The issue is like, okay, you know, tragedies, there are these things that happen, and we had the, I guess, the ex-Navy police officer in L.A.
Yeah, Connor or whatever.
Yeah, just you know, he seemed unbalanced, and
he was unbalanced. I mean, yeah. look at his whole modus operandi in this case. He blamed everybody else except himself, of course, and he's a big burly guy, well, great shape and all that, but mentally imbalanced. And it wasn't the guns he used that killed people. It was him that pulled the trigger.
Right. But I'm just saying, if you look at these, the larger fatality rates are actually from handguns, like say in Chicago, on just regular crime. Even though these things are pretty spectacular, and it's terrible because they're tragic.
Well, you know, Chicago has the highest murder rate,
right.
and they have the strictest gun laws.
Right.
Chicago has the highest murder rates in the country, but also has the strictest gun laws, which means private citizens cannot protect themselves against the people, the thugs that are running wild in the streets of Chicago. That is a mistake. In Texas, where people can carry guns concealed, crime rate is one of the lowest in the countries. And another thing, when you have laws that say you can protect yourself, protect your family, protect your homestead, those states have lower burglary rates because people know that there's guns there protecting the households. So we have to look more across the board. We cannot just pretend that, oh, it's a clip that has 30 rounds in it that makes the difference. No, we have to make a determination. Do we want our law-abiding citizens to be sheeple, to be slaughtered by thugs, or do we want our law-abiding citizens to be able to have the right to carry arms? Now, many states under this current push are saying now everyone can carry firearms concealed. Texas has always allowed that for I don't know how long, but and there's several other states that allow that. Like I said, if a criminal knows you're armed or the potential that you're armed, their chance of coming after you is going to be dramatically reduced. Now, the mental health issue is what should be addressed. Not, oh, we're going to ban a bunch of guns. It should be, how are we going to address the mental health issue of the people in this country? How are we answering that, Mark? Is there any answer to that?
Well, I would say that, you know, you're probably going to have more mental health issues as this, you know, things get more crowded, as the economy is not recovering in year after year or decade. You know, we've had, what, 4 or 5 years of the economy not really stalled, 1.5%, 2% growth. You know, people get out of college, they don't have a job. You know, business, the government's growing in leaps and bounds. Right. So there's a lot of more government taxation
But doesn't that bring stress to the people?
And then there's, you know, and then people are getting, some assistance as far as food and one thing or another, some scraps off the table. But I would say that, yeah, as you have you're in a low economic state, a lot of people very desperate, that could add to this. But I also think, you just have a lot more stressful situations, and you have a lot more people, so you're just going to see more of these mental health breakdowns.
I think you're correct, Mark, because I think the whole concept about mental health, stress, the economy, all adds to a couple things. One, people are more desperate in their lives. Two, nobody just gets a free check. And although they may get a free check for whatever reason, or a free cell phone from this government or whatever, the problem is this. We can't solve it tonight, but I'd like to see where these laws go, whether they get passed or not. And just on that note, I'd like to thank Mark for tonight, and we wish you a good evening from Law Talk. Thank you.